Okay, Marco Brown, good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I, in the spirit of COVID, am not in a suit. I'm actually going to go lift some weights after this, so I'm just in a t-shirt for today.
Fantastic. I too am not wearing a suit and am working from home in the true COVID way. Thanks for taking the time today. I know that that I told you that the real key to this particular part of our law office management course is client acquisition, marketing, branding, all those sorts of things. But before I get into the weeds, there's a question I like to ask all the practitioners I've talked to this semester. Just very, kind of on the whole, what is your story?
So my story is, I'll try to do this quickly. So I'm from a little village in Alaska. It's called Cold Bay. It has 85 people in it. My dad ran a salmon hatchery. My mom was an air traffic controller. So that's where I grew up. I blame all my social problems on the fact that I grew up in a village of 85 people. But went to, when I was 17, lived in Alaska my entire life. When I was 17, went to BYU here in Utah, Brigham Young University. Got married, then made our way out to the University of Nebraska for law school. I knew since I was about 8 years old, my grandmother was a professor and had a PhD back in the day when women didn't do that sort of thing. So I knew when I was a little kid that I would get a professional degree of some sort, and figured out as I grew up that just God made me to be a lawyer, right? So I had to be a lawyer. Made our way out to Nebraska. We loved it out there. I really enjoyed the school. I thought it was one of the best values in America. The kids were great. The professors were fantastic. Clerked for a year after law school in the 3rd District in Iowa, and then went to an insurance defense firm in New Mexico. Worst job I ever had in my entire life. It was a 50, 60 guy shop. Absolutely terrible. So decided to quit that in 2010. My wife wanted to get a doctorate, so we came back to Utah. I started a law firm in 2010, which was not a good year to start a law firm. For those who remember, New York, large New York law firms were shutting down, large LA law firms and Chicago law firms were going out. And I just decided to do it. Not a great decision, but thankfully it worked out. Had to bust my hump, had no network, no clients, no nothing, and just made it work off a lot of very, very hard work in the beginning, including I took an $8.50 an hour job on nights and weekends while I worked the law office during the day to make everything. They were crazy times. I think back about it now and I'm like, holy crap, I can't believe I did that.
Yeah.
But did it, and it is the best decision I ever made in my entire life.
Fantastic. Excellent. Obviously the culmination of what you created back there in 2010 was Brown Law. Tell us about the firm. What's your mission? What's your value proposition? What should the students know about it?
Yeah, so we do exclusively divorce. We don't do car accident cases, don't do real estate cases. We do one thing because we're going to do it better than everybody else. And that is really our value proposition. So I don't have much of a mission statement other than just to be the best, because that's kind of who I am as a human being, and that's what I want to create. Other than that, we have the singular focus, which is a value proposition, and then we communicate with our clients on a very, very systemic, in a very systemic way. So, for instance, every Friday, every lawyer calls every client. Okay, so if they talked on a Tuesday, they're going to talk again on a Friday for an update, answer any questions. And then on Wednesdays, the paralegals send out a text to every client. Do you have any questions? What can we do for you? So we communicate a ton, because the number one complaint, like every ethics class, you talk about this, number one complaint people have with attorneys in general and divorce attorneys in particular is I call and I can't get a call back. And that leads to so many bar complaints you can't even imagine. But beyond bar complaints, it just leads to really super unhappy clients and very poorly run law firms. So I just went through and I said, all right, I'm just going to solve the problem, because it didn't seem like that difficult a problem to solve. So I just went through and solved it. And we do this, we talk in a systemic way to our clients all the time, and have the 5-star reviews to prove it.
That's really interesting, Marco. So we, in the class this semester, have talked about, building a practice that's client-centered, right? So I'm sure you've heard the term, but I mean, the old ways of practicing were generally not viewed as client-centered. They were more, I am the lawyer. I am imbued with God-given and or learned talents and knowledge that I will bestow upon others.
Or I just am God as an attorney.
Sure, exactly. And so, if you're not happy, that's fine. Go hire somebody else. Someone will come and hire me. But obviously, the world is different. There's lots of lawyers. Some say there are too many of us. And with all the competition, and you mentioned obviously the ethics components, there's a lot of reason for firms to look at clients a bit differently. Obviously the communication, that's a really interesting kind of way to approach it, to say no one's going to complain about a lack of communication from us. What are some other pieces of that? So I like the every Friday, kind of the routine workflow. What are some other ways that you kind of ensure that you and your team are kind of meeting that goal of being very communicative with your clients?
Well, that's pretty much it. So we obviously communicate via email primarily with our clients, and we also communicate via text, which is not a normal thing for attorneys, but it is absolutely something that needs to happen, especially among the generation, because I've noticed that our 20-something clients react very much better to text than they do to even calls on the phone, because talking to people on the phone is apparently not something that the younger people actually want to do anymore. So you just have to kind of know your audience, right? And then be able to communicate in all of these different media. Some of the other things that we do, not on the communication side, but on the kind of value proposition side to our clients and to serve them well, I cap the number of clients attorneys can have. So you go other places, in other divorce firms, they'll have 60, 80, 90 clients simultaneously. They don't even know their names. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to the courthouse and on a hearing, and I'm talking with my friends or their acquaintances about their cases, and they're like, "Yeah, I've never actually met my client. I can't quite remember why I'm here." They kind of sort of, but they're going to take like 5 or 10 minutes before the hearing and get acquainted to.
Sure.
That's a terrible way to do it. They just don't know their clients. So I cap the number low to keep the quality really high. And then we also do everything as a team. So we sit down with each other, we talk to each other, strategize with one another. I try to build an environment in which all of the attorneys can talk to each other and get ideas from each other, and we're all around each other, and there's this cross-pollination, helping with cases. So I like that. One of the things I didn't like about working in a big firm was the fact that I didn't really communicate with the other attorneys that much, because we had such high billable hour rates that you just didn't talk. You didn't sit around and shoot the crap with people, right? And you didn't really talk through these cases. I mean, sometimes it happened, but it wasn't an organic sort of deal. And I've tried to make it very much an organic deal here, that we all just talk and help each other as much as possible.
It sounds like some of this is maybe a bit of just your leadership style, that you've communicated to your team that these things are important. This is how we're going to do things, and I'm going to live those things in the way I conduct business.
Yeah, so law firms are really a reflection of the owner. Most companies are, right? SpaceX, Tesla. I'm reading a biography of Elon Musk right now, so that's what I'm thinking about. But SpaceX, Tesla, they're very, very much reflections of who Elon Musk is as a human being. And when we get into firms, we have to realize that our firms are very much reflections of who we are and then who we employ, right? But who we employ is also a reflection of who we are. So you have to realize, like, this is who you are. This is how you want your law firm to look and to be, and you need to make those decisions in the beginning and then hire people that facilitate that.
Nice, absolutely. Well, so another detail about your practice, and then later in the conversation, I may pull up your website just to share into the screen as an example. But one thing I noticed when I was just kind of perusing is that you emphasize with frequency the notion of flat fee arrangements. So this is something we talked about earlier in the semester, but I know that we have some students that may be going into a practice that at least includes these types of matters. Could you talk a little bit about fees and how you approach those from an economic perspective?
Yeah, so really there are two. I mean, there are more than 2 ways, but the two primary ways to bill are billable hour and then flat fees. And there are some other very interesting ways that people are experimenting with, like value-added fees, these sorts of things. I haven't looked at those enough, and but what I do is I I've never thought was really conducive to those sorts of things. So we either bill by the hour or we bill on a flat fee basis. So I went through a period of time where probably 90 to 95% of our billing was done on flat fees. I've kind of reversed that ratio now. So about 90% of what we do is based on the billable hour, and then we have about 10% that's on flat fees. But when it comes to flat fees, they're very interesting, and if you can make them work, it's a good way to set yourself apart from other attorneys. And here's a really good piece of advice. You do not want to be like all the other attorneys. So attorneys usually get out and they start a firm very much in the fashion that everybody has started a firm, and they do very much the same things that every other attorney has done for the last 50 to 100 years in the United States, right? That is a bad way. I mean, that's fine for a middle class life, I guess, but that's a bad way to differentiate yourself and make a lot of money and help a lot of people. So be different, right? And that's okay. And one of the ways you can do this is by doing flat fees. So with flat fees, you just have to, well, I'm going to use what we do as an example. So the way I do it is I break it down based on the stage of the case. So there's always the beginning stage of the case, and then either we go to mediation or we go to temporary orders and divorce. And then, we might do discovery, we might do a custody evaluation for custodying the kids. So I have all these stages broken down. I put them all on a whiteboard and figured out exactly what we do. And then I assign numbers to those based on the data, the number of hours that we've worked on each stage, and try to figure out what a good number was for the flat fee. So I would say that that's probably a good way to do it because that's the way I do it. But here's the thing, you're going to get that number wrong, especially in the beginning.
Sure. Yeah.
You're always going to undervalue it. So what I would do if I were starting over again, I would take the number that I had, the based on the data, and just multiply it by 2. And you're probably going to get closer to what you're actually going to spend, because what's going to happen is you're going to have those cases that they're fine, you'll make some money on it. Like if you charge $2,000, you'll maybe do $1,000 over the work and bank $1,000, but you'll have cases that will cost $8,000 and you've only charged $2,000, right? So you need to figure that out, and you got to realize you're always going to be low. So just multiply it by 2 or whatever it is, you'll get much closer to that number. If you're really into the flat fee and really want to do it for your clients and you think that's going to differentiate you, then stick with it, and you have to adjust your numbers all the time. Because most of the time what happens with lawyers is they do a flat fee and it doesn't work out. They take a bath on some of these things and then they say, well, flat fees don't work. I'm like, no, dude, just go adjust your numbers and you'll eventually get there, right? So that's the way I would think about it. The reason I've gone away from flat fees a little bit is I found it personally easier to sell people the billable hour. So,
interesting.
Yeah, flat fees are kind of, this is how I say this. Flat fees are like poetry, and no one likes poetry, right? So you're just telling people the end from the beginning and being super honest with them about it. And some people love that, but most people don't. Some people, that I'm not lying to people, but they kind of like to be lied to, right? They don't like to know everything, and they just want to get in and get on with it. So I found it easier to actually sell the billable hour. But I have some friends, like a lady named Regina Irene, who is, I believe she's out of Texas, if I remember correctly. But she does family law, and she does flat fees exclusively, has for the last 7 years, extraordinarily good at selling flat fees, right?
Yeah.
Would never do a billable hour, but she found that was easier to sell for her, and I found that the billable hour was easier to sell for me based on my personality. So again, you have to know yourself and go essentially with what works.
That makes sense. And one of the things you mentioned earlier when you were talking about setting those fee amounts was the data from each stage of the case. Is this the kind of thing where you guys track time spent and costs for each, and then you do track that over time and see how close you get before making changes? Yes,
absolutely. So we use Clio as a case management software. Clio, I think, is the most robust and easiest to use out there. There are lots of others, Rocket Matter, all that. So again, go with what you like. But what you have to do is you have to sit down, and everybody needs to track their time. And then periodically, probably once every 6 months, you need to sit down and just take a random cross section of your cases and see, okay, here's the amount of time that we're spending on each stage of the case, and then readjust, right? Or you may want to do it every 3 months. Especially in the beginning, you want to do it every month to see, and then maybe you can back off to every 3 or every 6. At this point, I'm at about every 6. But
Right.
yeah, you definitely want to keep that data, because you don't, you're just guessing.
Yeah. Well, and maybe as we pivot to, kind of client acquisition, right? Obviously, as a new attorney, the fact that you are inadvertently maybe underselling your value, maybe that's not all bad, as you are trying to build up a brand and name for yourself. Do you want to talk maybe a little bit about those early years, when you were trying to kind of fight and work to obtain clients who would pay you to do that thing that you were an expert in?
Yeah, this has been in my career. This has been the most difficult thing. Client acquisition has always been the most difficult thing, because
Yeah.
I'm at least a relatively competent lawyer. So that was never entirely difficult for me. I mean, it took a lot of work to become a very good lawyer, but at least I was always relatively competent. I'm not a relatively competent business person or salesperson, and that's something that's very, very critical that is not taught in law schools. Is client acquisition is based on two things. It's based on marketing, and it's based on sales and closing. Okay, so sales and closing, they're part of the same. What's the word I'm looking for? They're part of the same system, but they're two different things. So sales is really getting people to want what you have, and then making them feel good about you and your law firm. Okay, so they trust you. And then closing is getting people to exchange money for your services. Okay, and sales and closing are two different things, in the sense that sales is very much emotion based, and you're really trying to get people to trust you, and you need to know how to do that. And then closing is logic based. So it's okay, now you felt the emotion, you know that you want us to help you out. Now you need to give us money, and here's why you need to give us money. Okay. Now this sounds all really forensic, but it is. So the sales and the closing is the most important skill set that an attorney can have, because it is absolutely paramount in client acquisition, and then it is also paramount in convincing judges to do what you want, and convincing other attorneys to do what you want. We are salespeople as attorneys. We don't like to think of ourselves like that. We want to think we're better than that. We're not. We're selling people on ideas. Law is all ideas. There's no physical thing in law, right? They're all concepts and ideas, and we have to sell people on our take regarding concepts and ideas. So that we do that with clients, and we do it with judges, and we do it with other attorneys. So that is extraordinarily important. And then there's the marketing piece as well, and that's really the kind of advertising and getting your name out there, and identifying the kind of people that you want to come in and hire you. So you need to be good at both of those things, but you need to be better at sales and closing at the beginning than anything else. And that, but for me, client acquisition was always the most difficult thing. It always has been the most difficult thing. So in the beginning of my law firm, what I did was to network, and I think that's probably still the best way to go for young attorneys, is you get to know every attorney you possibly can, based on who you think is going to give you referrals. Okay, so as a family law attorney, we worked with this data. Criminal defense attorneys are our best attorney referral sources. So I try to know every criminal defense attorney in the state of Utah. I'm not great at it at this point. I know way more divorce attorneys, but I'm making a concerted effort to get to know them, because they're our best referral sources. So I networked a lot when I first became an attorney, and I still network a lot. I do some advertising specifically to attorneys in, say, the Bar Journal, these sorts of things. So know where your referral sources are going to come from, and really hit that. And if you're in law school, if you're a 1L or a 2L, and you don't know attorneys in Lincoln, and you're going to stay in Lincoln, you are behind the 8 ball. Like, get out and get to know attorneys as quickly as you can, because if you're going to start your own firm, or you work at a small firm, that is going to accelerate your client acquisition like you would not believe. And I know a lot of law school, 2Ls are thinking themselves, or 3Ls are thinking themselves right now, look, attorneys don't want to talk to me. I'm just in law school. Attorneys are actually really super nice people. Like, you go to them and say, hey, I'm a 3L and I'm going to stay in Lincoln, and I want to get to know the attorneys in town. I guarantee 95+% of them are going to go out to lunch with you. They're going to do everything they can for you. Lincoln is an extraordinarily nice place with extraordinarily nice attorneys, and they will do anything for you. So just don't be scared of it.
I'm glad you made that point, Marco, because that I never started my own firm, but that totally tracks with my experience as an attorney as well. Even when I was at the big firm, and even when I was billing crazy buku hours, getting a ping from a law student for whatever reason was a treat. I mean, it was a break from the monotony, a break from the day, an excuse to turn off the timer and give someone some time where I knew that point 0.1 or point 0.2 or point 0.5 or 1.5 was going to be very valuable to that person, even if we never talked again. You know what I mean? So there was something warm and fuzzy about that. I think that that's a really excellent point. You're correct that law school doesn't encourage students to go out and take the bull by the horns in that way while in school.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think that's one of the great disservices that the law schools do to their students is not to encourage them.
Yeah.
And sorry, I'm not ragging on law school, probably a little bit, but anyway, it's just a disservice. Like, we need to get to know our colleagues. That's how we make money. That's how we serve people. And lest you think that this is all about making money, it's not. Like, we serve people as attorneys, and I want to serve as many people as I possibly can in what I do, because I know that we are excellent at what we do. Okay. And I make money from that, and I'm fine with that. But it's really about, like, how can I serve the greatest number of people? So the way you get to do that is you get to know the people in your community who are going to send you clients. Like, that is the only way that it happens.
Yeah. So, I mean, it strikes me that now, so firmly kind of in that marketing side of things, right? So you mentioned marketing, you mentioned sales and closing. So the marketing side, I think, again, maybe like you, a lot of lawyers don't have that as a natural skill set. You might have some lawyers who have the gift of gab, right? Who can chat up a room and all that stuff, but still converting that to a marketing or a branding strategy takes some time and effort. So I guess from your perspective, what are the biggest ways that you've found that have been successful for you in establishing your brand as an attorney or your firm's brand, and getting that out there? I know you mentioned a few things. You mentioned talking to criminal defense attorneys throughout the state. You mentioned bar journals. Are you talking about sort of like writing for them, things along those lines?
We just do ads. We do
ads. Okay, good. Yep. Okay. So I guess over the course of time, are those the most important things, or are there other things that you've done really kind of on a core branding and marketing strategies perspective?
So branding and marketing are two different things. I don't spend a lot of time with branding, and probably need to spend more.
Okay.
And I can talk about that. On the marketing side, really, I think it's doing one thing. So we as attorneys like to, especially small firm attorneys, like to do lots and lots of different things because we're scared. And it's based in fear. So the fear is, if I don't do a lot of things, then not as many people will hire me, and I won't make as much money. So we do a lot of things. It's what I call chasing money. You're just chasing cash. So I think probably the best thing to do is to do one thing and to do it exceedingly well. Because if you do one thing and do it exceedingly well, then you can command more money for doing that thing. And you can do less of those. You can serve fewer people and actually make more money. And when you're able to serve fewer people and make more money while doing it, then you have margins, and those margins allow you to hire more people, expand the marketing, expand the branding, expand the networking, and you end up serving more people in the long run, and then making more money on top of it. So I think that's the biggest thing, is do one thing, and everybody in your market knows that you are the guy or the gal that does that one thing and does it exceptionally well, and they're going to send people to you. Because we tend not to send people to generalists if there is an expert who just does this one thing. And we know, looking at doctors, that doing one thing makes more money. We know this is true. We can look at doctors. A normal general practice doc in America will make $150,000 a year. A general surgeon that's a mid-level specialist will make, on the order of $500,000 a year. I know this because I do their divorces. And then brain surgeons that only do that sort of thing will make $900,000 to $1 million a year, because they are the experts at an increasingly smaller niche, right? So they command more money. And lawyers do not, some lawyers get this,
right?
Most lawyers do not.
Right.
that one thing. Maybe you're in, but you're in Nebraska, and who knows? Maybe you're going to go back to Kearney and be a lawyer, and that's totally fine. If you're in a smaller area that doesn't allow you to do one thing, pick two things and just do two things.
Sure.
I don't think anybody should do more than two things. Certainly no more than three, because if you do more than three, you're just terrible at everything. But
Yeah.
pick the one, go with it. You're going to make more money.
Yeah, I mean, you've hit on one of the challenges for a state like Nebraska, which obviously certain of the students may go back to a smaller community, and just from a density perspective, I love what you're saying though in terms of focusing your attention to get really good at that, and being okay with the fact that when you graduate, you're not yet good at that thing, right? Law school again will give you a framework, give you a platform, but unless you've taken the initiative to actually start to do these kinds of cases in a clinic, in an externship or a clerkship, you're probably not going to be good at it yet, and that's all right. So that's true for most of us. But I do like the idea of having that as a baseline, because maybe thinking differently about the geographic region for your clients will give you a larger pool, right? Maybe you plant in Kearney, maybe you're willing to go out to McCook, to Ainsworth, to Imperial, right? Maybe there's a way in this modern day and age that you can simplify that relationship instead of having to get in your car or ask your clients to get in the car every time you want to have things done, right? So that's really cool. Now, I want to talk about advertising a little bit. So you mentioned bar journals, and I'll just raise just an amusing anecdote that I know I told you about. But for the benefit of the students, when I thought about reaching out to Marco, it wasn't just because I knew Marco from a past life, or that someone said, "Oh, hey, Marco's the guy." It was partly because I met Marco in person, and I had something on my desk. Marco, when he came by, gave me a notepad. This has been, I think we decided back in 2018, so years ago. And if you can tell, but this has got Marco's mug on it, and it's got a little bit about Brown law there, and talks about some stuff that he wrote and authored. And so during the semester, I had this kind of thing staring me in the face, and then when I had to make a choice about who to call, fortunately, it wasn't because I needed a divorce, whether in Utah or not, but it was for this purpose, and I thought of Marco. So tell me about advertising. Obviously, I know you do notepads. You mentioned bar journals. How do you approach that?
So I've always done, other than networking, which I think is the greatest ROI, because you're going to get better clients from a really successful referral source, which is other attorneys. So that's always going to be the best thing. I always tell young attorneys, before everything, you should network as much as you can. But advertising, I had to advertise in the beginning because when I came here in 2010, I had 0 clients, 0 network. I had to build all that stuff up, and I decided to make my play on the internet. So I got a website. I think I got my first case with a retainer, made $2,500 off of it, I believe, and then I bought a website and and wrote it out. So I've always written a lot. I think we have 400 to 500,000 words of content on our website at this point. So, I wrote that out, but that was how I started doing the advertising, was online, just on the website. And that's when SEO was a big thing. Organic search was a big thing. So you could get a lot of play doing that. And it didn't cost me that much money. It just cost me the time. And I had tons of time and I had absolutely no money.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I did. Games changed a little bit. You should still do that because the written word is always going to be king. Sorry. No matter what, in human history, the written word is king, and it always will be. I've started doing a lot more videos now. So on a YouTube channel, I actually do TikTok, which sounds crazy, but yeah. I do TikTok, and I think I have 85,000 followers at this point. So that's kind of a fun thing I get to do. They're little minute-long videos explaining divorce and marriage and these sorts of things. But that's a great way to do it as well. But all of mine is just internet-based because that's where I decided to make my play. Now, as we become more advanced and as things have changed, your website has become less valuable in the sense that people do not go to websites to read large amounts of text anymore. You need text in order to get people to your website, but they're going to read whatever blog post you have or whatever's on your website for literally 15 to 20 seconds. And then if they like what they see, they're going to call you. Okay, so you need to realize that's just kind of the way it is. And the other side of this is things are a lot more based toward Google AdWords now, so less SEO, less organic reach, and more based on the AdWords, which costs money. So you have to make that investment if you're going to play that game. And thankfully, we're to the point where we can play that game, and we play it very, very well. I have a contractor in Minnesota who does all of that stuff for us, and he's exceedingly good at Google AdWords, but you got to spend the money to do that sort of thing. Now that's going to be different. Like I'm in a larger market, right? I think we have 1 million, 2 million people in the market here. But maybe in Nebraska, it's going to be a little bit different. And especially if you get more rural, things are going to be different. You're not going to have to spend that kind of money. But if you're in Omaha, maybe in Lincoln, but certainly in Omaha, you're going to have to shell out some cash for Google AdWords if you're going to go that route.
Just from and I'm speaking from ignorance here. I mean, what kind of magnitude are we talking? Are we talking a few thousand? Or are we talking about more?
Yeah, it depends. It depends on how big a player you want to be, right?
Okay.
So you can do well. You need a contractor for this sort of stuff. I mean, you can figure it out on your own, maybe if you're really good at
Sure.
it. I am not, so I employ somebody to do this for me who's excellent at it, and I think that's probably the way to go. But I think the stat is 90 to 95% of Google ad campaigns lose money because people are just bad at the campaign, because they like write something themselves and put it up there, and they don't look at the data, they don't follow the metrics, they don't do any of that kind of stuff. So,
right.
But if you're good at it and you have a well-run campaign, you spend a couple $1,000 a month, you can do okay. I mean, we're like orders of magnitude higher than that because of the level we play at. But I started at, I think, 1,000 or 750, and then you build up over time as you build your client base. So you can certainly do it on the lower end and then come up through the market.
Well, and obviously for you, I'm sure the fact you mentioned earlier that you cap the number of clients that each of your attorneys works with probably intersects with this to some degree. If you have a certain spend and you're getting so many results, there's so many people coming through the door that you're saying no more than you're saying yes. I could imagine you making some different choices on how much to allocate to that, or whether to grow or expand, right? Bring on more attorneys, kind of make that play.
Yep.
So I mean, you mentioned your website a few times. If you don't mind, I'm gonna pull it up on the screen here, and it's gonna explode my monitor setup here, as it always does. I think that's showing there. It sounds like this was your early asset purchase, that you had your first client, you decided to go out and get your website set up, and you mentioned that you've got a lot of text, a lot of words, and absolutely, I clicked through on some of it. You've got different topics where you've got some content, some information. You've even got I think down here you've even got a whole what looks like a book, sort of download an ebook about divorce and whatnot. Do you find that you mentioned that folks are less inclined to spend 30 minutes or longer on your website today than they were maybe 10 years ago? But do you find that resource materials like this, stuff that you've written, serves to either establish your credibility and or get people to make the phone call because they learn a little bit, but they want to know more, and they reach out to you? Yeah,
it definitely does. So this is the way I think about it. The more questions you can answer for people, the more they're going to trust you. It's just the way it is. So if you are seen as an expert, and really experts are nothing more than people who answer questions that other people don't understand or know the answer to, right? So if you can just answer those questions, then people are going to see you as an expert. So we do it in two forms. We have the FAQ book, and I believe it's, how long is this thing? 140 pages now. It goes through and answers essentially every question that I get asked on a daily basis in my consultation. So I put that together, and people read it, and people love it. Over time, I've noticed that people tend to read it a little bit less, and it's based more on the fact that I have it, and that the fact that it's there, and they read a few pages of it, and then they come in and meet with me, and they trust me, and then they hire me, right? Which is fine with me. In 5 years ago, people would read more of it. They'd read the entire thing, but I see that a little bit less. But there's still the fact that I have it sets me apart from 99% of my my competitors. Let's put it that way. So there's that. And then again, video is, I think, very, very important. And nowadays, I spend a lot of time making video content and answering questions in video content, because that's maybe 15 seconds or 30 seconds or 60 seconds. And if they can see that and they can click, okay, here's one, and then they can click on another and click on another and click on another. And then they've watched 6 or 7 or 8, right? We spend huge amounts of time on, people spend huge amounts of time on YouTube wasting time. So they will spend more time on YouTube doing this than they will reading.
Right.
So I have tons and tons and hundreds of those videos, and people are starting to come in and say, hey, I watched your videos and I really liked it, or I saw your stuff on TikTok and I really liked it, and they come in. So you have to have nowadays both the written and the video media for people to see and to look at you and say, yeah, this guy, this gal is an expert, I'm going to go give them money.
Yeah, well, and this is somebody I trust, or I think I would trust, right? You know, and you use very different skills to convey that in this medium than you would in writing. So the other thing just occurred to me, you know, the YouTube idea, right? So I know and I hope I'm wasting time on it less than others, but I know that when I'm on there, that YouTube will then try to get me to stay. So if I have expressed interest and watched a video or two of yours, which I have, I'm guessing that I will be now informed about, oh, hey, Marco posted something new, or do you want to watch this, also by Marco, which strikes me as a really big win for you, because now all of a sudden your mug is appearing on my YouTube channel when I'm just kind of thinking about what to do. Am I going to hire you for a divorce? I hope not, but there's a greater chance that I'm going to hire you now because, again, you're front of vision more frequently than you ever were before. So very, very powerful kind of a way to get your kind of tentacles in to folks who are curious about these areas.
Yeah, this is a big thing. There are kind of two schools when it comes to advertising. One is that you only spend money on a very narrow range of advertisements that you can absolutely prove have big ROIs. And I completely and totally respect that. And in some cases, I do exactly that. Like with Google AdWords, I'm spending a lot of money to do that. And I want to know, and I need to know that ROI is there, and I can track that, and we do track that, and we figure that out. We just, for instance, we spent a couple $1,000s in a nearby county here to Salt Lake, and that didn't work out nearly as well as we wanted it to. We figured out that we could redirect those $2,000, $3,000 to Salt Lake proper, and we were going to make X amount more money. So that's exactly what we did. So you really do need to track these things, but that's one school. The other school is be as absolutely ubiquitous as possible and don't really worry about where your ad spend is. And in some things you have to be like that. Like I try to be universal. I try to be the divorce attorney that certainly every lawyer in Utah thinks about, but I want to be that person that everybody thinks about. So whether it's on TikTok or YouTube or Facebook or these other media, like just go out there. And in those media, I have absolutely no idea what the ROI is. Like, I will probably never know it, but I'm okay with that because I just want to be ubiquitous. So I'm willing to be ubiquitous and to spend the time to do that in those media, but then, where the bread and butter is with Google AdWords, those things like that I track very, very heavily. But being ubiquitous is something that attorneys do not try to do, that they really, really need to work on. Because if you are the person that everybody sees all the time, not like billboard stuff, because billboards are actually the worst. TV and billboards are the worst dollar spends you can do. But if you can be on social media and be ubiquitous, you will get blown up. Like your law firm will blow up.
Well, and it seems like just like the practice of law requires constant lifelong learning, it strikes me that the notion of being ubiquitous will also require that same discipline. Being ubiquitous 10 years ago even would have been very different than today, just in terms of how much time we all spend looking at these little things, right? And in 10 years from now, who knows? We may be looking at these little things, or we may have some version of the Apple, we'll call them Apple glasses, which will no doubt lead to chips being implanted in our brains at some point during our lifetimes.
Yeah. So I have a friend, Billy Tarasio, in Phoenix. She's a divorce attorney down there. Very, very savvy businesswoman. And she was talking to me the other day. She said, I got a client because the client literally said, Alexa, who is the best divorce attorney in Phoenix? And Alexa
that's
said,
awesome.
Billy Tarasio, right? So, I mean, you got all these things and you need to be ubiquitous on all those things. So now I'm trying to figure out, like, I don't do Alexa because I find that stuff to be completely annoying, and I don't want I don't want Apple to listen in.
Sure.
Because Apple, I don't even know. I didn't want it to listen in on my family's conversations, really. But now I'm trying to figure out how to be that for
That's fascinating. Fascinating. Oh, I love this. I'm learning a lot here. And I'm trying to decide whether my job would benefit by me being ubiquitous. I'm guessing the answer is no, but that sounds kind of fun. So I know I've still got your website pulled up. One more thing I wanted to talk about before we leave it. We've got a lot of testimonials. And in addition, I don't know if I'm going to be able to quickly find the spot, but there's another place on your site where you have what looked to me kind of like Google reviews or Yelp reviews, right? Where you've got stars and then you've got a little paragraph or even a sentence just sort of saying, Marco was great, or so-and-so really helped me through my challenging time, or whatever it might be. Could you talk a little bit about these? Are these, because this seems to be part of your strategy here as well. How do you decide where to get these from? How do you get people to share them? How do you and do you have any control over what they say? Because obviously bad reviews, just a couple bad reviews, even out of a basket of 100 could be pretty bad. So how do you approach that?
So you need to have, this is social capital, right? Like people in the old days, they would go to the city square and they would talk to their friends and they would see which baker was the best, right? Or which weaver or whatever. So we don't do that so much in America anymore. We kind of, we tend to bowl alone, as the book, there's a title of a book called Bowling Alone, talking about how America is, really atomized on the individual and whatnot. So we kind of do that. So maybe you talk to an attorney or your parents knew and ask for a recommendation. Or you just go to the internet and you see who has the most 5-star reviews, because that's social capital, right? And you have to have both of those things. So it's always nice to know a lot of attorneys so they can refer to you. But even if that person refers to you, the potential client is going to go to the internet, is going to check out your 5-star reviews. This is just how it is. I ask all the time how people find us and whether or not they looked at us online, and 99% say yes. So you have to have this. Get as many 5-star reviews as you possibly can. I think this is extraordinarily important for attorneys, and an opportunity that's really, really missed. People don't think this is a big deal. It is a very, very big deal to our clients. We as attorneys think things are important. They're absolutely not important to our clients. Like winning a case, right? Like you go into a hearing and you win 9 out of 10 of the issues. But you were 5 minutes late to that hearing. Your client will care far more about the fact that you were 5 minutes late to the hearing than you won 90% of the issues.
Yeah.
Like what's important to our clients is very different than what's important to us. So this is extraordinarily important to our clients. You should acquire 5-star reviews like the crazy cat lady acquires cats. Like get as many as you possibly can. And the way to do that is you just have to go to your client when they're at the kind of apex of their happiness with you, okay, whenever that is, and then ask them for a review and have your link to the review site ready, give it to them right then and say, can you write it right now, right? It's going to be slightly awkward, but you're going to get it, and you're going to acquire these things. You really do need to acquire them as quickly as you can, and as many of them as you can. And you're going to think that there's a law of diminishing returns with 5-star reviews. I can guarantee you there is not. Right. We have 219 5-star Google reviews as of this morning, and then a smattering of others. If I had 500, it would not be diminishing returns. Like that would be exceptional, right? Like, and if I had 1,000, you're just not going to reach a point where another 5-star review is not going to be important to you.
Right.
So just get as many of them as you can.
Right. I mean, think of Amazon. I mean, I find myself buying more from Amazon than I would necessarily want to, but one of the reasons is because they have this notion of collective buy-in to the product. And if I have 2 4.5 stars and one has 200 ratings and one has 20,000, that 20,000 way more valuable than that 200, right?
Yeah,
so,
and
exactly again,
go on.
And I even know that those systems are not necessarily accurate because of all the buying and selling and trading of fake reviews, right? And yet here I am still feeling better about my purchase.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the fake reviews is what I want to talk about real quick. You are going to get tempted as somebody who starts a law firm. You're going to get tempted to take a shortcut and buy reviews. It is,
okay.
If you can go out and do this. I have somebody who calls himself my competitor. He always has approximately 20 more reviews than I do, because every time I get to where he is, his number, he goes and buys 100 more reviews or 50 more 5-star reviews or something like that. And it's exceedingly obvious that he does this. And it absolutely infuriates me every time.
Interesting.
But you can tell that they're bot reviews for the most part, right? And ours are, it's unethical to do this. And I have to be able to sleep with myself at night, and I can't do this sort of stuff. So all of mine are completely normal. And I have 1-star reviews, and you want some 1-star reviews. You don't want too many, but you want some, because if you have too many 5-star reviews, people start kind of doubting that you're being serious.
Too good to be true. Yeah.
Yeah. You're kind of playing the game a little bit, but anyway, you will get tempted when you start your law firm to buy reviews. Do not do it. If Google catches on, they will blacklist your site and you're gone from Google, and it'll take you 6 months to a year to get back on there, and that'll bury you. And if it's ever proved that you did that by your competitors who have a vested interest in proving that, then you have an ethics problem and you can get disbarred. Don't do it. Serve your clients exceptionally well. Do the frickin' work and get the 5-star reviews.
Cool. So maybe to pull back to kind of where we started, you asserted that the really most important skill that an attorney brings to the table is, kind of making the sale and then closing it. Right. So, with that in mind, I mean, is there any other advice that you would give to a new attorney, whether they start their own firm, join a small firm, or otherwise just find themselves in a position where they are trying to make that pitch to a client? Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you would advise?
Sure. Yeah. Sales and close is the most important skill set that you'll ever have as an attorney, and probably the most important skill set you'll ever have in your entire life. I would never have been able to marry my wife, whom I dearly love, without the ability to close her on the sale, right? And that sounds terrible, but I had to be able to sell myself to her because I didn't have a lot to offer, so I had to get creative with it. But it's extraordinarily important. So that's number one. The second really is, you're going to get clients. You're going to acquire clients. Is how, if you even have to go to the bottom part of the market to acquire clients, you're going to be able to acquire. So once you have clients, you have to get paid. Okay. And I talk to attorneys all the time about getting paid. In fact, when we met in 2018, I was actually out in Nebraska to talk to attorneys about how to get paid. But that is an extraordinarily useful skill set, and you have to master it. You have to get paid 100% for the work you do. Okay. So the arrangement we make with our clients is, we are going to do exceptional work for them. And you as an attorney need to do exceptional work, because that is our duty as attorneys. And then on their side, they need to pay us 100% for the work we do. So figure out how to get paid. Do not be bashful about this. You need to get paid 100%. I have videos all over the place and blog posts on my website about how to get paid. I put 8 rules for this, so you can go check it out. But that is really, really the most important thing. If you get paid at 50%, if you get paid at 60 or 70%, you are not going to do well as an attorney. You're not going to be as good an attorney as you want to be. Your team is going to really suffer, because you're not going to have the money to pay them, and they're going to be stressed out of their minds. And you're going to take all of these F clients, and you're going to keep all these F clients who are not, A to F, right? We grade them. So you're going to take all these F clients who are not paying you and creating all sorts of stress in your life, and keep them. And that is going to make you a very, very nasty human being, and your team a very, very nasty team. So get paid.
All right, good. Well, fortunately so I'm glad you honed in on that point. Great way to close. That's a very consistent point that has been discussed with the students throughout the semester. And I hope that you have helped to close the sale with the students to fully accept that point. Well, Marco, thank you. This was a really enlightening conversation. I enjoyed it a ton. Thank you for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.
It was a fantastic conversation. I really thank you for reaching out, Brett.
You bet. Take care.
Okay, bye.